Welcome to the Other Great American channel. Today's video is going to be about the ridiculousness of blood quantum. In essence, the concept of blood quantum was made up by Caucasians in order to take away our copper-colored American indigenous heritage and our land and give it over to mongoloids who agreed to be against us on the side of the Caucasians, who we now call Native Americans today, and to give it away to other Caucasians who we can now call $5 Indians. So, according to an NPR interview, the definition of blood quantum is the amount of Indian blood that an individual possesses. The federal government, and specifically the Department of the Interior, issues what is called a certified degree of Indian blood, and that is a card similar to an ID card. So the way that blood quantum is calculated is by using tribal documents, and usually it's a tribal official or government official that calculates it. So let's examine this paragraph for a minute. It says in the beginning, blood quantum is the amount of quote-unquote Indian blood that an individual possesses, and that's calculated using tribal documents, and then a tribal official or a government official will verify that yes, you have enough Indian blood in your heritage or in your family to be classified as an American Indian. Here's the issue I have with that. We had a verbal history. We passed down our history verbally, and that included our heritage, our lineage, relatives. When we talked about our parents, our grandparents, cousins, nieces, uncles, all children, all of them, that was verbal. We didn't have documents back before those immigrants were coming over here and started writing things down. The issue with writing things down, even though we've been able to find a lot of proof of our American heritage in written things, the issue with that is they can fabricate things and put lies on documents and books, and because they say that it's valid, it's considered valid, even though in reality it's not, but it's considered valid in the eyes of their fake ass laws. So you can't really trust what so-called tribal documents say, because they don't even match up with the 1828 definition of what an American, which is copper colored. Because if those tribal documents were correct, then all the brown people should be considered American Indian and not these mongoloids and these Caucasians. So by the way, this is what the that ID card that we were talking about just a little bit ago, this is what this looks like. And surprise, surprise, there's a Caucasian lady on there. So are you really going to take these people seriously when they're just giving it straight up to Caucasians? And then the Native Americans have no problem with this. They're not out there fighting and saying, hey, this is wrong, you're not no Native American or American Indigenous person. They just go ahead and let these Caucasians, these $5 Indians, go into their tribal. Now, I guess tribal documentation doesn't matter, does it? It didn't matter to the $5 Indians, to the Caucasians who are lining up for the Dawes rolls who just paid $5. Where are their documents at? So here it says, how do people know those original enrollees had full blood quantum? And they admit in the article they didn't know. They basically just looked at these officials or these census takers, were just like, you know what? You're classified as a Caucasian, you're a Negro because you're dark skinned and I don't like you. Even though you're technically a Negro, you're light skinned, so I'm gonna call you an American Indigenous person, or you're light skinned enough to pass for Caucasian, so I'm gonna call you that, or white, or whatever. So basically, there were no blood tests back then. Remember, these DNA companies today, they admitted that you cannot trace heritage or ancestry using blood tests. Heritage and ancestry is based off of all kinds of like a culture. You cannot trace that through blood. The proof that we have are literal pictures and definitions from when these people first got over here to the Americas. Okay, so all these documents they're talking about they're fake. They just made that shit up. Because how you look so different from all these paintings and depictions till today? You look straight up Asian or Caucasian. So therefore, all those documents that they're talking about that you need is void. So it says here, a great example to understand this problem in real life is that there is a history of freedmen who are black, not black individuals who are living as fully incorporated members of Indian tribes. So basically what's going on with this, because they took it to court and everything, is because they were basically light-skinned, or they were the real American Indigenous people. Because these other foreigners are trying to steal our heritage and our land, they're put on a separate role. And so the ramification is they don't have they are not an original enrollee, because it said they don't have enough blood quantum and therefore cannot be extended tribal membership. Well, hold on. So you're saying you don't have enough blood quantum? How crazy is that? They're telling you, because when they talk about the freedmen, they're really talking to all of bronze people. They're telling you, who are the real American Indigenous person, you don't have enough Indian in you. The mongoloids and these Caucasians who are not even from here are telling you you're not an Indian. The only Indian here, and they're saying that you ain't it though. How are you gonna take these people seriously? They're talking about, oh, you need documents, and you need this, and you need to show proof of your heritage. How many of us are doing genealogical research, or we've had parents, grandparents, great-grandparents tell us, yes, I was part of this tribe, or my parents part of this tribe, or we were always here, we had never come from Africa. But these people talking about, well, you need documentation. Well, what about all these brown people finding documentation and genealogical proof that they are American Indigenous people? You try presenting that to the government and see if they honor that. And then it says here what does not prove blood quantum. It says a certificate of Indian status card, self-identification, status gained by adoption or marriage, which is interesting because later on in this video, we're going to be talking about how the Asians in South America did the same exact thing the Asians did in North America. The Asians we want to call Native Americans, they gained status by marriage. But it says here you can't prove blood quantum, but I guess it doesn't matter because a lot of the Chinos or the Asian slaves that worked over in South America and Mexico and all those places, they became Indians and gained those rights. So we're going to talk about that right after this video from Hidden Colors, I forgot which one, by Tariq Nasheed.
The late 1800s, there was something called the Dawes rolls, which was basically a census that made records of people's ethnic backgrounds in order to determine which Native American tribes would get certain land allotments and other benefits. After slavery, many black people were associated with some of these tribes by bloodline, through marriage, through adoption, and even servitude. And because they were associated with these tribes, many black people were entitled to some of these benefits. The government did not want blacks to get these benefits, so they created a separate freedmen's list specifically for black people. They also started to list any full-blooded Native American who had African features as black because they didn't want them getting those benefits either. At the same time, they allowed white citizens to come in and pay money under the table to be listed as part Native American.
But you a full-blooded Indian
1895 and 1896, when a lot of the whites found out
so much for blood quantum,
the benefits that these blacks are going to be entitled to, a lot of whites went to the Dawes Commission and say, look, why don't you put my name on there? They said, but you're not an Indian. So that's what they said, well, I'll give you $5. So the rule got around, the policy got around that for $5, that a white could put his name on the Dawes rolls and be called himself an Indian and be entitled to all these benefits, and all their children could be entitled to all these benefits forever. And so that became known as what's called a $5 Indian. And so if you go around now and check most of the Indians, the so-called Indians in America, about 90% of them are not even Indians. Those are just whites now who are passing as Indians. But they're getting all the benefits. And they're not paying any taxes, getting free college education. They put up no reservation on the land that they don't live on. They have another home off, and get all kind of benefits.
Iron Eyes Cody was another famous Native American person. He was in the media for years. In the 1970s, they utilized him for this pollution commercial. He was known as the Crying Indian. So he was a very well-known Native American in American culture. But the reality is, Iron Eyes Cody wasn't Native American at all. He was Sicilian. Both of his parents were from Sicily. So he didn't have one drop of Native American blood in him. He was another fake Indian.
Fake ass. So now we're going to talk about these are from this book, Asian Slaves in Colonial Mexico, if you want to read further about it. So basically, these Asian slaves came from China, and they wanted rights like the indigenous people had because indigenous slavery was prohibited in Mexico. So as we read here, after some reform, the labor system moved toward temporary servitude, in which Indians were coerced to work for a specified time, but given some pay and recompense. That means you're not a slave, because you're getting paid. Indigenous slavery, moreover, was prohibited. Chinos arrived in Mexico as legal chattel, but soon they too benefited from some protections, in part because they were not employed in agricultural production. But some Chinos, moreover, became temporary slaves, bonded to labor for a specified period rather than for life, and then they joined the free population as Indians. But slaves with African ancestry, on the other hand, remained in bondage. Now remember, they hardly brought any African slaves over here. Most of them just died. So when these Mexicans coming on to our pages and our forums and our posts talk about you are African, can you please explain how the hell Asians, Chinese came over here and they can just identify as Indians and you don't want to address that? That you're mixed with them? That you're not actually indigenous to this place? You mixed with Chinese and Caucasian and East Indian and Bronze, the real American Indigenous and everything else. You ain't American Indigenous nothing. So thanks to the interventions of these inspectors who followed through on these accusations that the Chino slaves were being mistreated, basically, some Chinos were actually liberated because they were understood to be Indians and could thus not be kept in bondage. This understanding of their ethnic identity set a precedent for their eventual liberation. I don't know what kind of understanding they're talking about in this book. You're an Asian. You just married this woman here. In the case of Mariana, an Indian woman married to a Chino slave, Anton, you just married an Indian woman. He used her to gain Indian status so he wouldn't be a slave no more. That's all. So much for blood quantum and documents and all this stuff. Because it says on the other thing, what does not define blood quantum self-identification. Well, you should have told that to these Asians over here. Now, here are instructions to 1930 census takers on counting people by race, because remember, you could not self-identify your race until the 1960s. So basically, a summary of this is the census takers basically looked at a person and said, according to what you look like and how you are, your place in the community, that determines your status. If you're a Negro, if you're an Indian, if you're a Caucasian, or whatever. Negro is just another word for black. In Spanish, they just made that up to take away our heritage. And Indians were supposed to be the mongoloids, or someone with a mixed white and Indian heritage. That's how a lot of these Caucasians became Indian too. The census takers would just went out and say, oh yeah, you Indian, wink wink, so you can get those benefits and get away from these Negroes who got all the land and everything else, and we ain't got nothing. So this is a timeline that measures the race and ethnicity across the decades from 1790 to 2010. In 1850, for the first time, a category was used measuring a black blood quantum. See how they make shit up? Turned mulatto for free inhabitants and slave inhabitants. Now, before that, it was just black and white. So where do the American Indians fit in if they didn't have a status on the census until the 1860s? The United States was founded in 1776. The first census was taken in 1790. It was only slaves, free white males and females, and all other free persons. Then it was black and white, and that's it. So, what category were the American Indians? If it was just those two categories, what were they classified as? Because you were in contact with those Mongoloids and all these people. You were in contact with them. You could have made a separate status for them on the census from the very beginning. So how come they was classified as colored, a Negro, and then all of a sudden actually American Indian? Whoa, hold on. Where did the two separate? We're all the same. Because notice the African's not on here. So again, remember, you couldn't classify yourself until the 1960s. And then in 1887, they have the Dawes roll. Just like how we just watched in the video, all these Caucasians were just able to just sign up. And that's how they were taking the land away and giving it to these fake ass, I'm gonna watch my language, these fake MFs right here saying that we the real American Indigenous. Look how ridiculous they look. Liars. And we look ridiculous arguing with these frauds and liars. These people are insane. They look in the mirror every day knowing they're Caucasians and going online on forums talking about we American Indigenous. Are you kidding me? Y'all, man, we stop playing games. And if you're a bronze ethnic American or a copper or so-called black, you could definitely trace your genealogy. Here you go. Here's Dan Calloway's book right here. You can get off of Amazon. It'll help you out. You can go on ancestry.com and trace your genealogy. But here's the issue with that. Here's the issue with going on and finding genealogy off of all these websites. You are going to the government. You're going to places like Library of Congress and all these places that they keep records, right? So Ellis Island and all these places, they keep all these documents and records and pictures and such. Now you're going to go and use that and go to the government or to a court of law who knows that they took your shit and they stole it. You're going to go to them with the documents that they already know about. And you're going to tell them, look, I'm a real American Indigenous person. They already know that. That's why you're able to get the documents from them. They don't give a damn. They have these pictures, these photographs, these depictions and drawings you're seeing on the screen right now. The government has those. They know who we really are. So you don't have to use your dog. If you want to use that for your own personal knowledge to know, I guess, what tribe you came from, we shouldn't have been no tribes in the first place. We should have all been one American people. But you can definitely go and research if you want to. But just know that you are dealing with animals, literally, not figuratively and symbolically. They got fur growing out of their head. So you go into these animals who run the government, who are savage and uncivilized in reality, and you're going to go to them talking about, here's the documents I got from you, proving that you stole my stuff. They already know that. Okay? They know that already. We don't need to prove anything to anybody. We know we the real Indigenous American people. And that's that.